Oh my God, I love Rainbow Radio. Many colors, many voices, one God, one station.
Good afternoon. Me mobi bia kwaba eba eye Rainbow Radio so 92.4 FM. Nyamiada Roma ene yene owura ne munyamfo eye Sekou Nkrumah yene no betwetwen eye enkomo ewo Rainbow Radio so maminchia ye nuanoma mo Milton Keynes a mutie yen sanso na Manchester so me mamunyina abakwaba Scotland fo nyina nso michia mo sanso na eye London eye michia mo eye Free Brixton enche yebekọ na yene eye Ora Sekou atwetwen eye enkomo na ye nkoma no eye akwaba. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon to you. But it's morning, yeah?
Yes, morning in Arizona.
Morning in Arizona. Yes.
This one that I've waken you up today. I think I don't know if you can your phone if you can just do with a landscape for me at the moment. So that's it. Very good. Very good. Very
this
good.
way,
Yes.
but that way, then I have to hold it up.
Yes, this way will be the best way. Yes.
Okay.
Or do you want me to give you some time for you to just see if you can put it on something so that you don't hold it up? Because we're going to have an hour conversation. So you just take your time. Yes, this one is perfect. This one
okay.
looks, yeah,
Okay,
this is
then.
very, very good. This one is even more bigger size. Yeah. Thank you so much. Abusia yene eye owura Sekou Nkrumah eba betwetwe nkomo. Obebusa se owura Sekou Nkrumah de oye hwan ya. Owura Sekou Nkrumah eye ye mampanyin eye Dr.REN Nkrumah ne ba the Kechiri Sekou Nkrumah and yene betwetwe nkomo. He is a writer and also a political activist. Ene yene ne ba bedidi nkomo afa oman Ghana ho. We'll be looking at a conversation. Ideas ni ideology in politics. Does it really matter? Yebeshwe sa enkomo no. After we'll delve into his own life. Seni eja ni papa ye omampanyini the first president of Ghana. Yene be din komo about it. Now things yahwe the current state of Ghana's economy. Na dwenchire wom ne saying we politics ache ana enche ye. Mubebre no amunim ze bia even before 1992 year politics up and down we Sekou Nkrumah what role will play the movement MFG no so movement the role Ben will play more and then no we will speak to him and then also we will delve into his life of politics yebeko na yamano akwaba Rainbow Radio so
Rainbow Radio, live 92.4 FM and DAB+.
Sekou, yemo akwaba bi.
Thank you.
First of all, where have you been? We've not been seeing you actively in our politics. Where have you been?
Yeah, I've been living in the US for almost 10 years now. So I left Ghana in 2015. That's why I'm not active in politics in Ghana.
Okay.
But I visited in 2019. I visited in last year, and this year I'll make a trip as well.
So what's the reason why you're not actively engaged in our politics? Is there any particular reason?
No, because I don't live in Ghana now. That's the thing. You have to live in Ghana to be more involved. So because my wife decided to do her PhD in the US, we moved back to the US. And she came in 2014 and joined her a year later. So she had to do her PhD first, and now she's a professor at Arizona State University. So we're kind of caught up here. She wants to develop her career here for now. And what I do is that to stay active, I teach in middle and high school.
Oh, do you enjoy it?
I started in Florida, and then I'm doing it now in Arizona. It's not too bad.
The kids
can be troublesome.
The kids are not troublesome.
They are. It's a different culture. It's a different culture, but you get used to it.
Now, let me ask this question. Do you have any specific group of people, like do we have any specific group of people set aside for political ideologies?
What do you mean by setting a group of people set aside for political?
You know, in Ghana, many people are with the opinion that when it comes to politics, it's a group of people that's supposed to do it. So you hear the word, you hear the statement, oh, as for me, I don't do politics. As for me, I don't want to do politics. Politics is for some people that are doing it. Do you think that particular saying leads to a question where I want to know if we have a set of people that is solely meant to do politics and have that political ideologies?
No, I think everybody can do politics. It's just a question of your interest. And then, of course, how strong. I mean, I understood when you said we're discussing ideas and ideologies. I thought it's more in terms of what the person's political understanding and beliefs. What really drives.
We will go into that specifics. But I want the general public that are listening to us, because it looks as if because of that, a lot of people are not trying to engage themselves. They think that, oh, politics is one thing, and my daily activities going to the market and selling my tomato or selling my pepper is also another thing. So I want your opinion on it, whether if those two things are distinctively, set apart.
They are not, but it's just a question of interest. And then, of course, for some people, they don't feel very comfortable going into politics because they feel it can create problems for them. And probably they have to make some sacrifices that they are not willing to make. I'll give you an example. It's interesting because you were mentioning the MFJ, Movement for Freedom and Justice. When I returned to Ghana, I was pretty young then, in my late 20s. And I got involved with politics, but it took me a while to adjust. And it was actually through my late wife, who was a Ghanaian, and the brother Akuto Ampa, who passed away recently. He was actually the main guy in politics in that family or household when I got involved with the sister. And it's interesting that I remember I went once there when we were dating, and he had left the house to sort of go and hide, because then the activities that started earlier, these MFG activities. And, at the time too, we were still under military dictatorship. So people were not very comfortable with confronting. And he and others were actually jailed some years back during the PNDC era in the early years. So I was wondering in my head then, but why would you get yourself involved in all this and harass or trouble the whole family? And that was before I got into politics. So you see, when you're on the outside, you sometimes think politics is just too much for the average person to take. But once you get involved, then you understand that it's just a question of developing your awareness, and it's a responsibility that we all have to the society. So once you mature in politics and so on, you understand that it's an obligation for everyone. So we all have their obligation towards our country, that needs to be governed properly. It needs to be, we have to check those in power and so on. And of course, some of us grew up in this whole era of democracy, freedom of speech, association, and so on. And so I guess, but that it depends on your political orientation. But I think we all have an obligation to be involved to make our society better. And of course, to debate the ideas. I mean, we all can't think the same. So you try to convince others that what your understanding of politics or your ideology is more suitable for our country and so on. So it becomes competitive in that way, but it should be all in good faith. I mean, I've never been attracted in political violence of any sort. I'm not a violent person in any way or physical. So political violence ideology is not an ideology that I'm attracted to. So sometimes, although I can appreciate some of the great revolutionaries of the past, those who seek violence, somehow I have some reservations there. But some people believe in a revolutionary setting and so on. Some of these things are necessary, but I have a bit different view. But I guess because I grew up in a different era where democracy was really the key word.
Let's talk about your relationship with Akoto Ampao. That means that if you are connected to, if you had a relationship with him as being a brother-in-law, definitely at the time you would have also met President Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo.
Akufo-Addo, actually, I met him. It was a Russian friend of mine. She was married to Ghana a long time ago. And when I came back to Ghana, I stayed briefly at Star Hotel then. And that's where I met her. So she took me as his son, sort of. And I used to visit her, we sit down, drink a few beer and so on. And then one day she said, she wants me to meet her lawyer. And then it was Akufo-Addo. So that's the first time I met him, very early 90s, in his office then.
Oh, so Akufo-Addo is actually a lawyer, because sometimes you hear in Ghanaian news, Akufo-Addo is not a lawyer. Akufo-Addo is all those adjectives describes him as a lawyer. He's actually a lawyer.
Well, I believe so. I went to his office, and actually, Akoto Ampao worked in his firm. Much later on. So yes, so in politics it's interesting. You meet all sort of people. And just to balance it, on the other side now we have John Mahama, did in the NDC. The first time I met him was when I was the director of the Du Bois Center. Mm-hmm. And his father had passed away, and he came to check. There was space at the Du Bois Center that they used to hold private events. So they wanted to see whether they could do the funeral or some kind of a thing for the father at the Du Bois Center. And that was the first time I met him then. I remember I was walking down from the museum and he approached me and we had a short conversation. And I said, of course, he's always welcome to come and do it. So it's interesting that in politics, once you get involved, you meet almost everybody. So, I mean, I've met all the leading players in Ghanaian politics. And even in the past, when I returned to Ghana in 1975, I used to like soccer a lot, and I used to go to the stadium. I was privileged to be at the VIP then during the champion era. And I used to meet General Ankara there, and I was then very young. And I used to go and greet him, made an effort to go and greet him. And he was a soccer fan too.
You to the extent of greeting General Ankara?
Yes. I thought it was nice. I mean, sometimes, yes, you can have differences. It could be all kind of things. I mean, I was a victim of the coup of 1966. I was only 2 years old. And I'm sure it had made some effect on me, and even moving into exile at 2 and so on kind of disorganized me as well. But you have to appreciate that these things happen in life, and we are still human beings, and we can still communicate.
So when you met General Ankara, what question did you ask him, or what did you say to him?
No, I was very young, and that was a long time ago, but I just wanted to make an effort to greet him. And he was pleasant as well. I mean,
you didn't look in his face and said any negative words to him?
No, it was a pleasant. And then the rest of them I met. Champon was a very pleasant personality, always joking and laughing. Rawlings, I met him a couple of times. Kufuor, I also met him. There was a funny incident. Let me share this funny joke with you. I went to his house. He had just won the elections and so on, or was president, I'm not too sure, during that period. And I remember going to the house, and somehow I noticed that he'd gone to his bedroom and then was locked, came out and locked the bedroom. And in my head, I was thinking, the whole president and your brother are locked in your bedroom. But, you know, he operated from his house. So I guess he was used to it. So it just tells you we're all human beings at the end of the day. Yeah.
Scared about our own shadows.
Yeah, we are all humans. We have to appreciate that. And you sometimes have to divorce the political person from the individual who has his own private life as well and is human with his mistakes and all that, or his limitations. And the same with politics too. I mean, even the great leaders have their limitations. Nkrumah, for one, was such a great leader, but he also had his mistakes. I mean, I've always been a bit bothered with this whole introduction of the PDA and people going into jail, some dying in political detention, J.B. Dankwa and others. So I've never been comfortable with that. So and that's why once somebody asked me, I mean, Nkrumah did so much for Ghana.
I wanted to ask
Let me just land with this one.
Yes,
he did so much for.
I wanted to ask that question because I know the person who asked that question's brother. That Nkrumah did great things for Ghana. How come some Ghanaians don't like him? I'm sure that's what you were about to say.
Yes, because I was asked that question, and it was actually in a church. That was my visit in 2019, and I said yes, but people that I mentioned the PDA and how people died in detention. I told the person, so if you were related to that person who died in political detention or was detained,
the Preventive Detention Act.
Yes, would you be happy with Nkrumah? You feel some sort of reservations. It's normal. So people who don't like Nkrumah further, they could belong to that category. But as I said, I mean, these are sometimes things that happen in politics. We are all not perfect. And of course, you have to take into consideration the time, the situation in the country. I mean, the political violence in Ghana started between CBP and UP before independence and so on. So both sides were to blame and so on. And sometimes when you're trying to resolve a problem, you might address it rightly or wrongly. But just to give you an idea of, the ideologies. Do you want us to go a bit into that?
Yes, let's go into the ideologies.
Yes. So you see, and that's to continue the conversation with Nkrumah. So Nkrumah was brought in by the UGCC leadership, and he got into politics in the US. He's 10 years in the US. But when he was called to Ghana, he was in the UK doing student politics. But he got into the Pan-African movement through people like Marcus Garvey, got inspired with this Africa and so on. And you realize that the whole independence or struggle for Africa, decolonization, was started by Africans in the diaspora, actually, thinkers and deep thinkers and so on. And of course, there was activities back home, like then the UGCC and so on. But I think that push, the main push was from those in the diaspora concerned about decolonizing Africa. So Nkrumah got into that. So the Pan-African idea was there, decolonization and then African unity. And that's why he really could do so much, because he understood the struggle of the time and what needed to be done. And then to add to that ideology too, as a socialist, he then introduced the socialist path for development for Ghana. So if you look at the 7-year development plan and all that, it was all in that direction. But sometimes you wonder, so why would the UGCC leadership, talking of ideology now, who were made of businessmen, and then also educated Ghanaians, lawyers and so on, who had the education in the UK or much influenced by the UK or British education, why would they thought very liberal in the thought and of course capitalist in the political orientation and so on? So you wonder, why would they bring a guy who did not share that? So I guess when you think about it, they were more interested in somebody who can go to the ground and organize the people. And I think there was support. The documentation that J.B. Dankwa even said that Nkrumah, if anybody betrays them from the leadership, Nkrumah would never betray them and so on, talking to the masses at the rally, I believe. So maybe they wanted to use his skills in that their organization skills and so on, but overlooked his ideological orientation. And then when the differences, okay, you could see that then he broke away and then became political rivals from that time. So ideologies, yes, it definitely does matter because that shows you where you're coming from. Nkrumah described himself as a Marxist intellectual, definitely a socialist, and introduced the socialist part. And that's why he also had the confidence in introducing a one-party state because he was then all focused on that, thinking that that will be the way you need to have a strong hand to develop our society. Not everybody, of course, will agree with that, but we have to recognize that that's what he represented, at least at the time when he lived there. But then when you look at so it's not difficult to understand the MPP, if you're talking about the MPP today, UP in the past and so on, or the Bouzia government and so on, which Kufuor was a junior minister then. So it's not difficult to understand where they're coming from with the liberal orientation, the capitalist, so on. Alain Cash, you remember that he when the MPP was formed in 1992, there was a business forum or whatever, young business executives.
Yeah.
In the MPP, he was part of it. So it shows you the ideology of where they're coming from, the MPP. And Kufuor himself, you remember when he became president before and after, there was a lot of these slogans, development and freedom. There was also private sector as the engine of growth and so on. So that's how young people then, at least when I'm talking young people then in the 90s when MPP was formed, gravitated towards MPP because they were more interested in that ideology. Now, if you oppose it to the NDC guys, that the cornerstones of that party, I mean, you have to look back to the June 4, December 31st, and you see social justice, probity and accountability. And of course, there was this whole crusade against corruption. So you could see that these are some of the ideological lines, differences between. And when you see why, that even answers why a lot of the Nkrumahs moved to the NDC because of the social justice and the orientation of the NDC as a political party. So you see, it's not surprising that as the CPP faded away and NDC became more or less the dominant force in that left wing of Ghanaian politics, people felt more comfortable with that ideology. And some even had to push away the violence and the streak and the era of bloodshed and so on in the early days of the revolution, to push aside because when they had to differentiate between NDC and NPP, they felt more comfortable in that platform. But I'll give you an interesting example, and that's also personal. Recently, I was in a WhatsApp group. We're sharing some ideas, and somebody was complaining about the corruption in the government today under the NPP. And I just threw back a comment that, but there was also corruption under NDC. And then so the person came back to say yes. So really, it's not about NDC and NPP. It's more that we need a leadership that emerges from NDC and NPP that is bold enough to address this whole thing of corruption. And the way you address it is that you don't let go of what happened in the past. So if you come into power and the previous government had committed, corrupt acts of corruption and so on, you need to address that and punish them. Not the sort of punishment that was done in the early 80s in the revolutionary era. No, we are now in constitutional rule. So you take it to the court, you kind of address the situation. So that people know that if you are in government and you are corrupt, you are punished, you will be punished. And that was a problem that people didn't realize with the leadership of Professor Mills. And that's why some of us fell out with it, because he was not addressing this issue of corruption and punishing the previous regime. You know, there was a lot of perception of corruption under the Kufuor government.
Yeah.
And Professor Mills kind of just went with the wind and decided, okay, business as usual and so on. And that was not the way to go. But people misunderstood it. When people were trying to take Prof on at that time, people felt that, those people want to go back to the leadership, the Rawlings leadership, and so on. No, that era was past. But you need to still be firm and address those problems. So the problem is still with us in Ghana. of corruption and so on. And that's the major problem in Ghana. And it's because the leadership that comes to power does not address it and punish those in the previous government who were involved in corruption. So it just engulfs the whole society and it's free for all.
In your opinion, talking about corruption, so do you think that was one of the problems that Prof had, not being able to, face the corrupt people that was in President Kufuor's era? That was the reason why perhaps many of his people in even the NDC
I think
party.
one of the reasons, or a big reason, you see, because that's why I'm saying that ideology, that goes back to your question of ideology, ideas and so on. You see, the NDC, as I said, going back to PNDC, was formed under this whole thing of property accountability. There was a whole crusade against corruption and then social justice. So you see, Prof, yes, he was an educated man and so on. But I don't think he was really, he was picked as running mate for the 1996 elections, because Aka fell out with Rawlings. It was so messy. Yes, so they had to bring somebody else. And Aka, in fact, was had running mate to Kufuor in 96. It was so interesting in Ghana. The sitting vice president who was the running mate to the opposition leader. Yes, those were really interesting times. Because, the Kufuor, Aka was with the NCP.
NCP, yeah.
No, NCP, yeah. And then they went into this to back with the other CPP parties, and then he became the presidential candidate. So it was really interesting. But back to the point, you see, so Prof, because he was not really grew up in the PNDC and this, did not really connect well with, or didn't make a conscious effort to understand the ideas and ideology of NDC. And somehow the NDC has now been deformed in that aspect. You see, it was important to move it to have a different look for NDC, not the aggressive, vicious kind of politics. But at the same time, you still don't leave behind your roots or your cornerstone, which developed that political tradition. And that's basically social justice, property accountability, and so on. So I think Prof missed that completely. And now the NDC, even the leadership now, ex-President Mahama, probably to be the next president, also missed that as well and continued with the tradition of Professor Mills, which I think deformed the NDC. The NDC needs to have the leadership that the Rawlings like leadership, but of course, in this era, more intellectual, more of a deep thinker, and then of course, following the rule of law and so on, not the buga politics. But you have to understand what you represent and the constituency you represent. So, so in a way that tells you that ideology is important to know what you represent and where you're coming from. So you can't just lead political parties without understanding the roots.
Oh, so in essence, Prof, in his own nature, as me pasumji, I'm a kind person. Let's forgive, let's forget, let's move on. That really hurt him without putting in consideration what the NDC stood for.
Yeah, I think that was a serious shortcoming.
Then talking about that one, John Dramani Mahama has also gone to take an education.
Exactly. So professor. The NDC has changed. But I think has changed. You see, I remember also John Mahama was, those days when the NDC was in opposition.
Yeah.
When they lost in 2000. John Mahama became the face of the NDC in the media. So on TV, radio, he was always, and he was very gentle, very diplomatic and all that, which was very attractive because you see the NDC looked like too much of that buga thing and people were not comfortable as we moved into an era of democracy and so on, not dictatorship. So it was attractive to a lot of people. But at the same time, it was a serious flaw, in my opinion, because the leadership was not really representing what the NDC stands for. And it disorganizes. So back to the very corruption that we also saw under the NDC is because you fail to address the issues, the cornerstones of your political tradition.
abusuafo yɛgu so a wotie Rainbow Radio yɛne ɛyɛ owura Sekou Nkrumah na atwitwe nkɔmmɔ no we are talking about ideas ni ideology sɛ ɛho hia ɛwɔ ɛyɛ politics ana open mu pɛpɛ mu ɛde akyɛ owura Sekou Nkrumah nso deɛ he needs no ɛyɛ introduction ya yɛnim no nyinaa de yɛnim sɛ ɛgya ɛyɛ yɛ mampanyini Kwame Nkrumah ne ba ɛgya ɔyɛ last born ana yɛne ne atwitwe nkɔmmɔ no some say sɛ ɛgya sometimes no they agree with the stance when it comes to ɛyɛ Nkrumah's stand on making a one-party state. We'll go and then ask him about this particular one-party state. Does he think so at that time, no, his father was being fair, or he needed to do it because many Ghanaians did not understood what the politics of the day was, and so in order to make sure that we have a good country that is, a developed one. He had to bring in a one-party state. We will ask him his opinion on it. Mr. Sekou, what was your opinion on? Yes. Your opinion on your father, delving into a one-party state.
Oh, I think that was the beginning of the fall. I never really appreciated it. But of course, as I would say, it's to be fair, you have to look at the context of the time and so on. And then you raise the issue of trying to unite Ghanaians and so on. But who gives you that mandate? To become president for life and all that. I think that these are a bit stretched to me, and I'm not comfortable with it. But when you look back, Nkrumah won 3 elections before independence, right?
Yeah.
51, 54, 56. So he started as a Democrat, right? And then the presidential election in 1960, which he also won, beating Dankwa, he also won democratically. So there was no need. I think he could have continued with so you need to allow, because when you close the door on the opposition in that sense, or opposing views, then in a way somebody would say, yes, then the 66 coup is justified because you suppressed a group of people and you can't decide it's majority, so that's it. No, you have to still, even if the majority are on your side, you still have to listen and give room to those who are in opposition to you or have different views. So I think it was wrong. But of course, at that time, people practiced it. The guy was named after Sekou Touré. I think he was the first to do so in Guinea. But he was a bit of a brutal dictator. And he was overthrown after he died. So he stayed in power till 85 or so. And the interesting thing, Sekou Touré had all this time to rule Guinea with a firm hand, but did he really develop Guinea as the way it would have been developed? No, so it not necessarily means that dictatorship, automatically you have the guarantee of success. No, but of course, Nkrumah was a bit different in the sense of, when you imagine infrastructure and the vision Nkrumah had at that time in developing the country, all those factories and Kosombo Dam and all that. But of course, there's that argument that the state-owned factories too were not running well and so on. But at least he was putting the infrastructure. Later, if we feel as a country that it needs to go private or whatever, that is fine. But I think Nkrumah, in a sense, if you look at the one part, he proved more his point that he was doing a lot for the country. But I think he could have still gone without introducing a one-party state, still having elections. And elections, you don't always have to go by, there's a limit to your term of running office. Like we have now in Ghana, 8 years, so you can run 2 terms. You could do it. In the UK, the prime ministers, they run as long as they want to run. So in Ghana, for example, if Nkrumah felt that he was the only guy to really move us forward, there would be no limit to his running for president, but at the same time, allow other people to compete and contest against you. So I don't buy into the one-party state or the military dictatorship either. When you look at the military history of military dictatorship, it didn't really serve us well. Achampon put a lot of infrastructure and so on, but look at what happened with corruption at the end, which even brought this violent UNFO and so on. So
Was it
Yeah,
Achampo that invited yourself, your mom, and your siblings into the country in 1975?
Yes, right. But that was part of the whole, Nkrumah was first buried in Guinea. Sekou was not comfortable to bring his body to Ghana for burial. But those negotiations then brought Nkrumah body back to Ghana for burial. And then when my mother came, my mother and the kids went to the first one in Guinea in 72. But the second one in Ghana, she came by herself. But I think through the negotiations, I think she was asked wants to come back to Ghana, and then she agreed. So in 75, we returned to Ghana. Yes, so it was during the Champon era that we were invited back to Ghana. But I don't know if those who are old enough to remember the Unigov later that ended up in a disaster. And I mean, the idea again was, you could say, maybe thinking of the country to have a united front where we could all work together. But in real terms, does it really work that way? Because then, and who decides who's on top? Mm. And so most people felt that Champon was just trying to extend his stay in power and so on. So if you ask me, military dictatorship and one-party state, no. I'm for the multi-party system of democracy. At least it's the only one that, for me, it best serves society for now, unless somebody can come up with something different and convince me. But we have to be concerned in Ghana that we have to look at it critically too, because it looks like, yes, we are changing governments, but the results are still the same. So we need to find out why the results are the same. And I gave the example here of, for example, not addressing corruption. That is one thing we need to address. That if the past leaders, government is accused of done corruption, let's investigate and punish those. So that way we end corruption. So I think that will go a long way to help the multi-party system of democracy. And then, of course, people will also understand that you go into politics not to make money. If you want to make money, then be a businessman. If, however, you're a businessman who wants to go into politics, then you're coming with your own money, and I don't expect you. And if you want to be greedy and put your hand in the public, then of course, there should be punishment for it too. So the multi-party system is good of democracy, but we need to redefine it and re-massage it to suit our values in Ghana, our concerns, and so on. So it's not if we are not in the finished product. I think it's all a process we are going through. But we can't go back to the one-party state. We can't go back to military dictatorship. So I think we are stuck with it, but we have to look at how we can make it better to serve all of us.
Ebushia mawakwa baba Rainbow Radio. So currently Ora Sekou Nkrumah and yeneno enkomo ewa hase no. Your questions and your comments are welcome. I mean, we say amanfo bebre no sane questions. So very good. Glad to see Mr. Sekou Nkrumah. He looks very healthy at 60. Are you 60 years?
Oh man, yeah, I'll be 61 the end of this year.
Wow.
Yeah, getting old.
Oh, I thought you were somewhere around maybe 50, 52. Anyway, 60. This one is also coming from Mabna. It says, Doc, good afternoon and good morning to Mr. Sekou Nkrumah in Arizona. I'm listening to you guys. I'm driving and I'm listening to you. This is a very healthy conversation. Ghanaians needs to know about conversations like this. It will brother our ideas on politics in Ghana. It looks like the whole politics is like Kankan Nyame stories. Like Ghanaians are afraid to question politics and to delve into politics. We are, concentrating on, dying and going to heaven. But I think that politics is very important, that we all need to get involved. Mabna, they are also at the free Manchester. Yen fa Susie. Today the ladies are commenting more. Susie, you said, Dr.REN, good afternoon and good morning to Mr. Sekou Nkrumah. Does that mean that if I heard Mr. Sekou Nkrumah well, does that mean that he's abandoned his country because of his wife, making sure that he gets his wife happy and that he's not coming to do active politics in Ghana anymore? Ghana is missing good men who can lead the nation. My greetings to Mr. Sekou Nkrumah. I don't know if you want to answer that one.
I mean, she loves Ghana. That's my wife. So we always probably return. But I mean, I think she needs to professionally develop as a professor now in the US. But again, leadership, I mean, Nkrumah served Ghana for a long time and he did so well for us. It doesn't mean that his kids should do same. I think he served for all of us and became larger than life. And in life, sometimes, I don't know, for whatever reason, your destiny, things happen to change your destiny, move you from one place to another and so on. I don't know. The universe is complex, and these things you never really can tell. But I mean, you can always contribute in different ways, and but it's not easy. And my temperament, I mean, I was involved with the NDC then, but summarize that that whole confrontation with Prof. Told me that, you see, I'm not going to settle for anything. So it's difficult to when you're involved in politics, if you don't play the yes kind of thing to rise, it will be difficult. And breaking away on your own, it's not easy too. I mean, Nkrumah did that, but Nkrumah was a different human being, a different political animal altogether. Not everybody is like him who can break away and then form his own party and be so successful. But also he proved when he was in the UGCC, he proved that he could organize the movement, broaden it, enlarge it, and had the followers. So I would want to do it on my own, I guess, and to serve under leadership that is not doing what I wish them to do. But at the same time, I might not have the capacity or the skills to do it or attract people. I mean, we're all gifted differently and so on. So I could be more involved in different ways, yes. I mean, leadership, I don't think it's easy. And personally, I'm not somebody who gets carried away. I'm not, I'm very simple. I'm not somebody who is interested in focus on me or kind of thing. But I when I believe strongly in certain things, then I could push all the way. And that's a leadership quality. But so it's more, my leadership is more of service and of self. It's, our society now is a lot more complicated. I'm sure during the era of Nkrumah, money and everything was involved too. But now it's really very difficult. And I guess everywhere, I mean, you need money to do politics. Now, where is that money coming from? If then where the money is coming from, you're going to be controlled and so on, then what is really the point? Because then you end up serving where the money is coming from and not what you're supposed to serve. And then you neglect. I'm somebody who is interested. I always say the rich people don't need me. They are doing well. So it's the poor people, the grassroots. And that's my political constituency. So to champion that constituency, you need to fight for them, the interests, not to fight for the interests of the rich people. And that's another thing also to reflect on. This whole concept of the Western form of democracy was really for the rich to rule over the poor in society because they felt the rich had the money, so they had the right to control and rule. So by adopting it, we've also inherited that, but we have those of us who believe in social justice and want to fight for the constituency of the ordinary man and woman in the street, then we need to find a way of existing in this multi-party system of democracy, but at the back of our heads, we know they want to serve the ordinary man and the interests of the ordinary man. I mean, how then you are able to do that is it, but that has to be the main focus of your political vision or direction. And I think the problem is many of them, they get lost and end up following money bags and follow the money, and they don't end up in a good place.
Is it the reason why, one of the reasons why it's hard for a third party to be able to capture power and lead our country? Money matter when it comes to money.
Yeah, I mean, the NDC and NPP have been consolidated now for so many years. It will be very difficult. It's not impossible, But things have to happen before that is possible.
Like
I think
things
the
like
idea,
what?
Yes, the idea people are thinking of, but that's also a tall order. Getting people in, so independent parliamentary candidates, because you can't win the presidential in this situation, at least from my point of view. So independent parliamentary candidates who can have, in the absence of a third political party that can win enough seats. So if you can, you remember in when Indom led the CPP?
Yeah.
In what year was that?
That was
2008.
2008, yeah.
8, yes. People thought that CPP was going to be a serious third force, with at least the party winning a reasonable number of seats, but didn't work out that way. It was the same performance. So the idea is that if you can, and I think that was mainly because Indom was he is somebody who's established himself in some ways, and I think he has some a bit good, articulates his political views well. I mean, I respected him in that sense, although I felt that forming his own party was not the way to go. And I remember having that discussion with him. But if you could then have as many seats in parliament outside MPP and NDC, and they can only be then independent or a political party, but it doesn't happen in the past. So if that is possible, at least then you have this group of people, let's say 30 seats in parliament, which is a bit too much too with the way our political situation. But if you can get that, that can be a starting point. And that can gradually then be transformed into that third force, then they compete. But if that doesn't happen, then we are still stuck with the NDC and MPP. But as I said, even if we are stuck with the NDC and MPP, there's still a way out if we have a good leadership. By good, I mean a leader that is prepared to do the right thing to serve Ghana, not to serve NDC or MPP. And when you say, I mean, the elite in the NDC and MPP or the elite in the Ghanaian society. No, if you have that kind of leadership, you could see changes. I mean, Akufo-Addo, people thought he was that kind of aggressive, but it turned out that, again, it's business as usual. And that's the thing. But of course, I don't think age has much to do with it. So it means that where you're coming from. You asked me earlier about the Alliance for Change. You remember when Seda Kotoampao and and so on in those political, there were others too, Kwesi Pratt and Kwekubaku and all that, the Alliance for Change. It was continuation from MFJ and all those things. I mean, I remember I was in that crowd. It was a massive crowd, the demonstration.
The
in 96 or so. Yes, massive. And I'll share an interesting joke with you too. But for them to have rallied that huge crowd, I mean, that was no joke. And it meant they were doing something right. And it would reflect in the leadership too, but unfortunately, it's pointing out. The former MPP, he used to be a CPP man, Freddie Blake. And
the Elembele...
yes, Freddie Blake. Yes, and then later MPP chairman. I met him in that demonstration, was wearing a white T-shirt and white shorts. And it's funny how you can meet in political, but I remember when we got to around the post office, then shots were being fired. And that's when everybody scattered. And one moment I was around a huge crowd. The second moment I was all alone, walking around in around the post office. So I quickly moved away. And then I was wondering, I said, damn, I mean, how can just one moment the gunshots, and you see, that's the thing, if you are not used to these gunshots and so on, you don't have the heart for it, man, it will scare the hell out of you. I mean, it was really interesting that the whole crowd just scattered. Because I think the government then got alarmed with what was going on.
So that means you've been around all this while. Just that you've not been.
Yeah, I returned to Ghana in '89. Yeah, and then so that's how I got to know many of the political players and understand. I think I understand Ghanaian politics and understand the political traditions, and because I have an open mind, I appreciate where they're all coming from and so on. And I think when I criticize, I genuinely criticize them, whether it's NPP or NDC.
So some months ago, I had calls from the chiefs and people from Elembele, and they were saying that why don't I speak to you so that you come and then contest for the seat of parliamentary in Elembele, so that at least you can ensure that they get development in the Elembele constituency. And I don't know whether if you are interested in it, since you're talking about
no, that's but I don't live in Ghana now. But I'll give you a background to that. I was first approached in '96 to run for on the ticket of, it was then PCP. Alhaji Banda was then the chairman of the PCP. I used to live in North Kanishi, so that constituency, which Akomia won.
Yeah,
he was there for a long time. But when I tested the ground, I realized that the CPP was almost non-existent. So it was really a contest between NDC and NPP. So sometimes in politics, you have to be realistic. When you fast forward when Indom, I was talking about him earlier, when he formed the PPP, he wanted me to stand at Elembele. But that's the discussion I had with him, that I thought that the party was not, I mean, I respect him as an individual, but I don't think the party could go far. So back to then your question, you see, you have to, it's not about you being a member of parliament in one constituency and that's it. You're not going to go far. So you have to belong to a group that is prepared to make changes across the whole country, not just in one constituency. Because it'll be very difficult if you have only one candidate. Your party has only one candidate, or let's say an independent candidate on his own to make really much of a difference. So it has to be a collective effort, like-minded people and so on. So that is when it can be attractive. And when you look at it also from a different, I mean, I remember when I was campaigning with Professor Mills before the 2008 elections, we went there. I was interested to go with him in the Nzema areas, so I went with him. I remember it was Kosia how drove me back. He was in a car with some people, and I think I went with him also. Yeah, he picked me up. So the Ahoy brothers, they play a very strong role in the NDC, or used to. So I remember one of the things I said there was that Nkrumah was first an African, second a Ghanaian, and third an Nzema. So that should tell you that, I mean, what development did he do really in Nkrumah or in the Elembele constituency? He was focused more on the whole of Ghana. So he did detribalize Ghana in many ways.
Yeah.
So, and that's why I then believe that you have to be part of a collective effort that is interested in bettering things for Ghanaians. Not necessarily just because you think you are in Zima, it should be your people. No, Ghana is our constituency. And even beyond that, I think as Africans, if we are really serious about moving the continent forward and being really competitive, we need to think Pan-African. But of course, that again is a different subject. And you could see that there have been so much, I think, not propaganda, but rather like influence from the West, because they are interested in Africa's resources and so on. So they have gone a long way to really undermine the Pan-African movement, because keep them divided and we can exploit their resources. And that's how even Nkrumah was overthrown and so on, because of the Pan-African vision and so on. So you could see that they distorted completely that vision for Africans. So that has to be re-energized, redefined. So we really need to be thinking, we need to be thinking Pan-African.
Talking about Pan-African, do you think that the call for Pan-Africanism that your father led, African unity, did not help his political agenda?
But that was his belief. I think it did, because you see, the whole concept of Pan-Africanism was decolonization first, and then continental union.
But then he became an enemy also
he
became also an enemy to the West by calling for Pan-Africanism, the unity of Africa.
Right, but he's an enemy because he was fighting for the interests of Africans. As I said, they have been exploiting our resources, and they continue to do so. I remember when I was in Tampa, in one high school, there was a Canadian teacher who got to know who the old man was, and then said, "Oh, he wants me to talk to his students in the class." And of course, I knew, I'm in the US. So I tried to explain the whole idea of the West exploiting the resources. And I gave the example of Ghana, the gold, the oil, and so on. We end up with very little because these multinationals, take the gold, take the oil out, and so on, leave us with very little. So, when you read Nkrumah's books like Challenge of the Congo, that gives you a fantastic idea of how rich the Congo is, but has been exploited for years. New colonialism, the last stage of imperialism, and so on. So there's so many books that Nkrumah was able to define his political vision. So definitely he was not, it was a continuation of the ideas and ideology or agenda he believed in. It was no contradiction at all. So it's not about whether it helped him or not. There was no way around it. He had to follow that direction or that vision. But we have to redefine it now because, as I said, it has been so much distorted because the West has an interest in Africa's resources.
And Nkrumah had no vice president. He had no vice president. Oh,
when he became, that's the one. President for life. Yeah,
why?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that was a bit too much. Yeah, but those days you could do those things. It would be ridiculous to do that now.
Well, let me.
But also remember Nkrumah. Remember, Nkrumah was a village boy. He grew up in a very poor surrounding village setting, but it's education that helped Nkrumah to be, and of course he was a gifted and exceptional person, but it's education. Can you imagine without education, Nkrumah could not have done anything. So, but even with all the education, you see, when you go back to your roots somehow, you see, your mindset is different. Some of us, for example, grew up in the city kind of listen. And because I had the privilege of living in different societies and cultures, my mind is very much open. So when sometimes people are limited because of their background, so sometimes you have to appreciate also, because I reflected on that, you have to appreciate maybe where Nkrumah was coming from. In his book, which I think is a must-read, autobiography of Kwame Nkrumah, Ghana. When he was in the US, hustling, when he was going to school, but also to make ends meet, and a living. He was working here and there, and he decided that he was going to work in a restaurant. And they asked him whether he had worked before. He said yes. So time for the soup to be served, and he served the soup on a flat plate. And you laugh about it, but it's interesting because it shows you how the sense of humor too. Yeah. But that is it, because that's a village boy. He had no real concept of those things. But when you're intelligent, of course, you can quickly, you can quickly develop. Yes, which he was. But still, we all have some limitation in the background. You'll be surprised that your background and your development has a serious effect on you, even as you get old and so on. So some of those limitations could be linked to his background and so on.
Let me read this quickly. There's a question from Francis. I'll say, good evening, Dr. REN. Good evening, Mr. Sekou Nkrumah. My question is, are you mad? Were you mad at your dad for choosing to be president on the premises that you and your siblings obviously did not have much time to enjoy him, but rather he had much time to focus on the development of Ghana? So he wants to know whether if you were mad that your father was a president.
No. Actually, but even I was 2 when he was overthrown, so he was president for me for just 2 years. But the thing I must say is that that's the sacrifice I was talking earlier in politics. You have to make sacrifice. So obviously Nkrumah did not marry because he was in love and so on. No, it was an arranged marriage. He didn't really have no time, and he was much older than at the time. There's a big gap between him and Fatia. So almost 30 years or so.
So you're saying that your dad married your mother not because of love?
It was not. When she saw his picture, she fell in love with him, and I think also that he was a big leader and so on. But no, he had no time. He was focused on his. You can't divide your time. You should know that.
Yeah.
So So he was not a family man. He was different. But so growing up, you have to understand that. So, as I said, I keep an open mind a lot of things. So it never really bothered me because I understood that what his life was for the politics. That's what we know him for. Yeah, the other things just had to be complemented. And I mean, I think my mother is the one who really had a bit of a difficult time. I mean, I always say that, which is quite an interesting story. That, you know, the day she flew into Ghana is the day she got married. That was 31st of December, 1950. What was it? 50? We had independence 56.
57.
We 57.
Had it. Yeah, we had
independence.
Sorry,
in 57. So 31st December 1957. Wow. And that night, Nkrumah never. I think he was then in the castle before we moved to the last years when we moved to Flagstaff. He never came home that night, and she cried the whole night. So she had a difficult marriage, and she was much younger. So because she, you know, a young lady going to marriage thinking it's romance, but this man had his own life and vision that he was dedicated to. So I can appreciate those things. I mean, and you have to understand what a person is, makeup and so on. And he couldn't have achieved all those things he did if he was the normal kind of person. Yeah, then he wouldn't have achieved. Because also you have to have that invest so much in things to really succeed or make a difference, and at the expense of other things. So most great people are not normal in that sense, like the average person. No, they look at things differently.
Yeah,
I do things differently.
Yeah, wants to know what political party ideology do you buy in Ghana and why? That's coming from Yao in Manchester.
Yeah, I said my constituency is the ordinary folks, so more of the grassroots. So I'm more of the left of Ghanaian politics. So if it's not CPP, it's NDC. But the issue is we have to be aware that also things are changing. So you can't be so stiff. You have to be open-minded. You have to find a way of how. So if you're a socialist, it doesn't mean you're going back to the crude kind of communist or whatever. No. I mean, you have to be also open-minded. And I had the privilege of studying in the Eastern Europe and that kind of communist dictatorship, and it wasn't a good thing. I mean, I appreciate the development, infrastructure, but you can't take away the liberties of the individual. You can't take away his freedom of speech, expression. I think those are extremely important. So I'm very liberal in my views, but and I put that the human being at the center of everything and the human rights. But at the same time, politically, I'll drift to the left because, as I said, the rich man does not need me, but the poor man does. So I want to be championing the interests of the poor, not the rich.
So that means you will be with the NDC.
Yes, and I was a cardboard member, but those problems, what happened with Mills, then it kind of threw everything off. And you see, unfortunately in Ghana, if you are in a political party and you decide to challenge the leadership or criticize, then they see you as an enemy or on the other side. So even if you continue to be in the party, you don't have a chance of existing, or operating. So you might as well leave the party. So sometimes, I don't know, people could be different and maybe find a way of surviving in there, but a lot of events then happened too that made me leave the NDC.
There is this journalist in Ghana called Captain Smart, God's Brain. He's been championing CPP. Do you see any future in your late father's CPP?
No, I think the NDC has captured their constituency. So
it will be difficult.
Yeah, but it's not about the name. It's not about the name. I think it's I mean, if NDC is pursuing the vision of Nkrumah, does it matter what the name is? Yeah, somebody could say, okay, but they came out of June 4, December 31st, so Rawlings is the iconic figure. But I'll tell you something interesting, and it shouldn't offend anyone. When Rawlings passed away, what was it, last year or last 2 years?
2 years ago.
2 years ago. I was never a big fan of Rawlings, but at the same time, I respect his energy and drive and what he was able. I mean, at least he was able to survive that long in Ghanaian politics. But I was reflecting on the situation and I said that in a couple of years, Rawlings' name would not ring any bell. And the reason is because Rawlings really did not have much depth, ideas or ideology. He had the energy and pushed for that, and that came at the right time. He was strong in energy and all that. But there was no idea behind Rawlings, no vision to define, ideology to define. So in time, that fades very quickly. Unlike Nkrumah, because of the idea and the vision, the ideology, it continues. But it does. The name is not about the name. It's just the idea. So the CPP means nothing. What is important is the ideas to be continued. But even then, it has to be redefined and repackaged. So even in Nkrumah's books, they are important to read. But you could see that there's a lot of work that has to be done into those books to really, for us now, when we're reading it, to make the links and appreciate. And of course, the serious academics can even develop on it. So nothing really can remain the same. It has to be continuously flowing and redefined and so on. So it can't be stagnant. So I think calling for a revival of CPP is like, doesn't even make sense to me. It's the ideas that to be revived and developed, redefined, not the name. The name means nothing. So Nkrumah's name on its own means nothing. It's the ideas that continues to make him live on in that sense.
Let's welcome Fifi Bonzi watching us from Virginia, USA. Mr. Abose Aite Seseku from US, and also Mr. Kitty Olsen, PPP chairman here in the UK and Ireland, is also watching us. Let me read this particular message. Now we'll just wrap up quickly with the next 30 minutes, and I know we will schedule for 1 hour, but my producer is saying that the numbers are going higher and higher on the DAB and also on the frequency 92.4 FM, and so we should indulge your time for extra 30 minutes if you don't mind. Now let me read this one from Abiba, and Abiba is listening to us from Lewisham. It says, Dr. REN, listening to Mr. Sekou Nkrumah, he is a man who is well open-minded. We need men like this who can speak truth to us, irrespective of where they belong. That is the problem of our politics. With politics where today you are afraid to speak truth because you know when you speak truth, you will either be sidelined, kicked out, and when you are kicked out, you know the country too is tough. So we need men like Sekou Nkrumah to be speaking more to Ghanaian youth, because the youth wants to listen to voices like this so that at least they can also learn from men like him. Yanko a year all the way in a year Leeds. Liz, Kwame Prepra will say, Doctor, good evening. And I want to find out from Sekou if he was given the opportunity to choose, where would he prefer to hold a political office, Ghana or Egypt? That is my question. So that's a Prepra's question. And also this one is also coming from Ajua. Or say, it is my first time getting to know that our first president, Kwame Nkrumah, had no vice president. Interesting. Why? Also, Eddie, what they buy, I don't know. I think, sir, I don't know if you want to answer Pepre's question. He says, if given the opportunity, Ghana or Egypt, where would you like to hold a political office?
Oh, I mean, we've always had Ghanaians passports. We've always had Ghanaian citizenship. Never had an Egyptian, at least for me. So the point is that Nkrumah did so much for Ghana that I can't be anything but Ghanaian. Yeah, but I mean, yes, and even my mother. I mean, she was more or less a Ghanaian too. She loved Ghana and all that. Yeah, so just the only connection with Egypt is that my mother, the old lady, but I never felt Egyptian in any way, or felt that I need to make any contribution there. And again, I mean, interestingly, I told you that I've lived in the Middle East, Europe, US now. The culture, at the time I was living in it, I mean, it was not so much of the I mean, I remember the women were not wearing, and the young lady wearing those things on their head. So now it is more often, so it seemed to be a bit more, becoming more conservative. I've never been really, the Arab world, that's one aspect that I'm not very comfortable with. A place where women relegated to the background for whatever reason, religious, and then where the society also people cannot express. There's a lot of dictatorship in the Arab. Most of them are not run democratic. I'm not very much interested in living in a country that is not democratic and suppresses or oppresses people or group of people and so on. So with Ghana, I mean, we are fortunate that we have embraced democracy since 1992. And I don't think we suppress, we have our own culture, which is unique in a sense, although we come from different tribes and so on, but we've been able to a large extent live together peacefully. But even where the Islam and Muslims, Christians, Ghana has always been, lived up to the secular state, has not been extreme or conservative one way or the other in those areas. So I think there's something good about Ghana in that sense, or the people, the way we do things or appreciate things, which the only problem is with the corruption now is extreme. And then there's also a lack of seriousness, which, coming back to the question of speaking to the youth, you see, it's not only speaking, that you really have to empower them. And one way of empowering people is that you find ways and means for them to grow and develop on their own. So yes, you mentor guidance young people need, but it's not that they have to make up their mind decisions and so on. So you just try to guide them. So if that is the way of speaking, then I will accept that. But I think empowering is what is more important, because there's a lot of Ghanaian youth who are frustrated there because they don't see a way out for them, and they have to look up or depend on somebody else. I think it doesn't work that way. It's within you. So you have to find your space in society and take it from there. And I think that's what seems to be lacking. We are not really developing our young people the way we should. So I think there's a lot of dependency that goes on, which is not very good. So some of these things we need to address.
Now, coming back to what we call the trending news, I'll ask you a question, and if you feel comfortable, you answer them.
No
And it's
problem.
about this government. First of all, let me find out your opinion on Nanado's government. 8 years, almost 8 years. Your take on President Akufo-Addo's governance
Oh,
and
the
leadership.
last year when I was in Ghana, the prices were horrifying. I couldn't believe it, and a lot of people were complaining. So I think they should be on their way out.
So we shouldn't
Yeah,
even be thinking about giving Baumia a chance.
not from not from where I stand, but I mean, I don't know. But my impression was that a lot of people are not happy with the NDP government, and it looks like that trend of 8 years seemed to be. I mean, and I understand it. 4 years might be a short time so we'll give you 4 more years, and then if there's no really serious changes, then you have to go. But as I said, I mean, we can't also be just changing and the results are the same. Then there's also a problem. So we also need to look at what needs to be done when you come into office. We need to put our leaders, put them on their toes where they do the right thing. And that's why I said the example that keeps on coming to my mind is this issue of corruption. Address corruption. So MPP goes out, NDC comes in, make sure you deal with those corrupt people in the NDC who held political position, and were guilty of corruption. They need to be punished. That way, then, you have also the more right to punish. When you leave and somebody else comes, they have the right to punish. It's not witch hunting. People should not confuse it with witch hunting. That's hypocrisy. It's about you do the wrong thing, you have to be accountable. That's it. And that way, then, our society can people then will be not, at least, I mean, people thought when the revolution, people were shot and killed. I mean, imagine that. How many years ago was that? 79.
Yeah.
When the generals and 3 heads of state were shot in firing squad. And look at the level of corruption now, even more than at that time. So obviously, we something went wrong, and we need to. This time is not revolutionary era, so their courts are there. There's a process, a legal, proper process that it can go through, and that's what we need to do. There could be other examples too of how things to be changed. From my experience, I mean, I was at the youth council. I did the youth council as a national coordinator for 1 year. I mean, when this criticism of Mills came, then I lost the job. But one thing I've realized that there was, I think we had 500 people working for us across the country. The infrastructure was poor. People paid for doing nothing. So sometimes the expenses we didn't have much money, the budget for that agency. But there are a lot of government agencies that need to be shut down. There are a lot of ministries that need to be either closed or maybe you put several of them together, cut down. So there's a lot of waste in the system as well that we need to address. I mean, and then, I mean, if you have a business and it's not performing, then what is the point? You can't be operating at a loss. It doesn't make sense. So whether that's a private, I guess you won't tolerate that. But the government has to be approached from that sense. If any of government agency or whatever is running and it's not efficient, it's not producing the results, it doesn't need to be there. It doesn't make any sense. So some of these things that come to mind now is that where we need to do things differently. But when you come in, it's business as usual, nothing is really changing, then that is unacceptable. And that's why things remain the same. We need to, and it's the little things sometimes when you put your foot down and address them, then you have room to address the bigger picture.
Sometimes
which then are the same Africa exploited, and how do we rearrange that, our relationship with the outside world, West and so on.
Fifi Bonzi wants to says I should ask you. He says that from Virginia. He says, please ask Sekou if he would consider teaming up with an independent candidate who possesses a strong vision and innovative ideas to create a revolutionary impact in a patriotic manner. Are you considering anything? Do you have any plans? There's been Kofi Granting, there's been Cheddar, there's been a
We'll
movement for
lose. We'll
change.
lose. We are going to lose out. It doesn't work that way. As we said earlier, the NDC and PP, yeah, I mean, they're so strong now on the ground, so it's very difficult. Very difficult. So there must be another way. I don't know which, as I said, I suggested earlier with the independent candidates, if that you have a large number, then gradually that can be turned
through the
into, but
parliamentary
if it's
system.
not possible, yes, through, you need the parliamentary presence, then you have a force there, then you can. The other thing will be trying to get the NDC MPP the right kind of leadership that can change things from within those parties. But I don't see, no, I mean, you always have to be realistic. In Benin also, several years ago, an independent candidate won.
Yeah, one in
Since then,
Benin,
there's some
yes.
changes. Yes, it is possible, but it depends on every place is different. When you look at it from the Ghana perspective, it's not likely that NDC MPP will lose so much votes. And we've had experiences of Guzitano pulling out of the NDC in 2000, did not perform. And they had a lot of serious intellectuals and thinkers in that reform party. Nana Konadu, when she pulled up NDC in 2012 or so, no performance. So it doesn't, it doesn't, from experience, it doesn't really, nothing happens when you break away from this platform. No, they still remain intact. So it must be, the change has to come from within, I guess. And if it's outside, as I said, then we start in parliament. But presidential is out. I don't see it happening.
You hear statements from the president and his people saying that, especially the vice president, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, that when it comes to infrastructure development, they have done very well, even more than your father did when he was president. And I quite remember the flag bearer of NDC, former President John Mahama, is telling the MPP, don't even go and talk about Kwame Nkrumah, just even compare yourself with my infrastructure development. Do you think that in terms of infrastructure development, the NPP has done much better than the days when your father was president?
No, I don't think so. I mean, look at even the Aksumbo Dam alone. But you see, people will also argue that in Nkrumah, the British left money on Nkrumah to do this, but it was our money anyway. But the thing is, even NDC, people argue that John Mahama did so much in terms of infrastructure. And why did he lose so badly in
2016?
No, 2016, right.
Yeah.
And even in 2012, I was shocked when the NDC won. But I guess that whole idea of 4 years is too short, I can appreciate. But so the argument, how did Mahama lose so badly when he was in office and they claimed they had done so much infrastructure? So sometimes we also have to look at, yes, infrastructure, but infrastructure like building roads, building of schools. I mean, all these things are things that any government has to do. Those are not something that, it is something that you do. But something that extraordinary has a long term and so on change, like my mind goes back to the Aksumbo Dam, we should still benefit from. You see, that is what then shows you the difference between leadership and so on. Rawlings extended electricity to the north and so on, which was appreciated a lot. Nkrumah, going back to Nkrumah, education, bridging the gap, north and south, education, free education, the concept of, I had people coming up to me and saying without that concept, they wouldn't have been where they are today. So Achampon built also good infrastructure, estates and so on. So there has been a lot of leadership. I mean, contribution of infrastructure from leadership. But I think there's more to it. It's not just about infrastructure, the quality of life, the opportunities of people to grow and develop. Of course, education too, but some things take time. The effect is not immediate. But I'm saying leadership, you have to have a collective, total vision that involves so many aspects of our development. You can't just pick on one aspect. That doesn't make it right. But I'm guessing that it's easy when you're in opposition. When you come to government, then they are overwhelmed with the challenges, and then they don't know what to do. But that is what I was highly disturbed with the NDC in 2008, because NDC had been in power, PNDC, NDC, for so many years, and the main players were still involved. So how come when they came back in 2008, just 8 years away, found it so difficult to reimpose themselves and then kind of have a clear vision and agenda? And that takes me also to the manifestos of the political parties. And I was also part of sometimes getting involved with these manifestos. And I tell you that some of those things are a joke. It's not much that goes into it. So I think there's a need for serious think tanks to be involved in developing these, not just things done in a hurry, just to put it out there as our manifesto. And that also takes me to the Youth Council when I was there there was a what do you call it? Youth Manifesto or something of the sort. The name now has been a while. And they write things down that don't necessarily reflect on the reality on the ground. And then they don't come with an action plan, so there's no serious commitment to tie government down to those promises, or just same with those manifestos. So sometimes we have to be realistic in our
sounds like artificial proposals and
yeah, you just putting something there to read out, and then these are no achievements. Yeah, so I think things have to be done differently. But of course, these things take time. The mindset, I mean, it's a question of the mindset, resetting and all that. It's not as easy as it seems. We can discuss it, but when you're trying to implement it, it's not very easy. So I can understand that. So sometimes some things need time, but we can also be waiting for somebody who's not performing. So we also need to change until we get it right. But it's not enough just to change. We also have to all make an effort when we're in those political parties to speak up, to get more seriously involved. And then those with specialization, I mean, who are experts in fields, I think they also need to speak up, because if I'm not an economist, you are not an economist, we can't really address economy properly. We need to have an economist who knows about economy to address it. But of course, it's not all economists. Some economists could be biased, could be because of his political affiliation, he wants to twist things. So not all academics are honest too. So you have to also
look for objective people.
We need an objective, yes. But you need somebody who also has a background or understanding in that field or area. So a lot of people...
We shouldn't leave it to the party communicators to just go and sit on radio, and then even when they don't have...
Oh, no, that's all, unfortunately, that's all BS. Unfortunately, all this communication is, for me, that propaganda means nothing to me. I mean, we spend so much on that, and it doesn't mean anything, no. That's why I said the speaking is not... We need that, entertainment and some education value too, but I think more of it is how to empower. Empowering people is the key to address solving our problems. It's really important.
John Mahama or Alan Kojo Chemanti? Who would you pick as your leader?
Oh, no, as I said that, okay, let me address it this way. In 2012, I picked Indom as the best presidential candidate among those who were contesting then. But I said he was not going to win, so I would not vote for him. So my point now, if you fast forward, Alan cannot win on the East platform. So it's between
John Mahama
and Dramani. And the MPP, the vice.
Bawumia,
sorry. Yeah. John Mahama and Bawumia. So because this MPP has been in power for 8 years, has not performed, I think I'll go for John Mahama. But there's a serious but here, and that is, we've seen the performance of Mahama in government, and I was not impressed. So there's a big question mark. Is then John Mahama has to convince us that he's going to do things differently. He's going to involve different people than the ones he used the last time to make a difference. Otherwise, if it's the same people, then it will be the same story, because these were people who were tested. It's not that they are new. So that is now he has to pick new faces, people who can make a difference, if that is possible within the NDC.
So what about John Mahama and Cheddar, these third force candidates?
Oh, no. I don't think I've listened to him. I'm not impressed personally.
Now let's look at Dr. Mahamadou Bawumia. Do you think that if given the chance, he will perform something better?
No, I think it will be continuation of what the NPP has been doing, and that's why I don't think it's good enough.
On a scale,
there's always the argument. If I'm advised, I can't really do much. I'm not the leader.
Yeah.
But you are part of the leadership, so you can't be excused. We have to measure you by the performance of the party that you served under, even if you were not there. The buck did not end with you, but you cannot say that you were involved. If you didn't like what was happening, you could resign, you could leave. Yeah. So he didn't do that. So he has to be accountable for those 8 years.
Ebusiani eye ora Sekou Nkrumah na edwin komo no ye Dr. Kwame Nkrumah last born ana ye no edin komo no ye writer ana afinso was a political activist osanso a lecturer a United States of America. Any didn't come or a dreaming about ideologies, ideas, politics, no, how impactful a tear. What church mu bebre na a fan a chat to ya answer and we want to know about a year or my Ghana, no, whether Ghana be people are saying say they have given up on Ghana any. Ebumukra say let's sell Ghana to even the colonial masters. Ebumukra say Elon Musk, you come and take Ghana. Ebumukra or Dutch, almost CCA crowd there. Unya a Holland passport is even much better than a PhD holder in Ghana. Ghana need a CCA there. I mean, a lot of people are saying so. Omo give up. I don't know whether you're a pessimist or you're optimist. Yebusano whether if Ghana we should give up and I mean think about something else. And also on the take on a year. Most importantly, what the youth have been saying about a year on my Ghana, ye neyo ene maybe a ye efa ye amemu no aye buno. Ebu bebre say ye share a year on mine sunsum no edibu on mine no ebeyanka yensi same constitution no. Embusano they take on constitution no. Mr. Sekou, the youth are calling for a constitutional change. I don't know whether if you have any say on this, whether if we should still maintain the constitution or we should change
it. Before that, we shouldn't give up. I mean, Ghana is still Ghana, and Ghana is our only home. But with the constitution, nothing. I mean, things have to be changed. I mean, we have to take into consideration that the 1992 constitution was really written in many ways by the PNDC and to protect leadership and all that. I mean, my problem was, I voted no at that time, the referendum. Because although the MFJ, the leadership voted yes, because they felt that would open the door for multi-party democracy. I didn't, because I felt that no. And my biggest problem was the indemnity clause that protected people who committed atrocities or crimes under the PNDC. So, yes, so things have to be changed. I mean, it can't remain the same, but I'm not a constitutional expert in that sense. I can pretend. But that's why I said some things obviously have to be changed, but we have to be aware of the time, the spirit in which that constitution was written. Yeah. And then you remember there was a boycott as well.
Yeah.
So a lot of experts did not turn up for that. So there were some problems, but nothing in cast in stone. I mean, it can, there's no problem with changing it, but you can change. I mean, again, in Ghana, we seem to be obsessed with form and not substance. You can change it, but so does it really? It's the leadership that has to implement and put things in shape. So you can have all the fine words in the constitution, but it doesn't. It could end up to nothing as well. I mean, it's a guideline, yes, but I think there's more to leadership than just the constitution. Wow. But that's my opinion.
Finally, before I let you go off the hook, let me read some of the messages. And I know some people wanted to call in, and we're not picking up calls yet. Let me just read one or two messages. And this one is also from Fifi Bonzi. Had a follow-up and said, Doc, please ask Mr. Sekou that if Benin has been able to do it, why can't we do it? Doesn't he think his name on the ticket? Doesn't he think his name on the ticket, I believe, will gain a necessary attraction because the inevitable fact is that change cannot come from the NDC and the MPP. That's
maybe 1%. The name of
now, and I mean, when you go on social media, the youth are calling for Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, and I guess that's where Captain Smart is also filling in the gap. That
he's dead and gone. He's dead and gone. So he played his part and he's gone. So somebody has to prove that he has similar capabilities.
And you don't think that you have the similar capabilities to?
No, if I had them, I would have made. If I had them, I would have made the difference. Trust me.
Your sister is going to Jomro. He's going back to Jomro.
He was an exceptional man. Yes, yeah, but yeah, I mean, I think my issues are now getting a bit closer to. When she came, I don't think she understood a lot of Ghanaian situation and politics. But I believe now that she's been there for a while. Yeah, she has a better understanding.
And we wish her the very best if she can win the Jomero seat. Let me read this message from Kabla. I say, Midiama called here. That's my brother in Zima. It says, that is our son. He should come back home. The chiefs and people are waiting for him to be in Elembele. We need him. The sons and daughters of Kwame Nkrumah must come home. We need them. These days,
they can't come empty-handed too.
That's a good one. And his point is that when you cast your eye, when you come to our land now, nothing seems to work. Many people have gone on consultations, whether through the Bible, whether through the pouring of libation, whether through bowing down and calling Muhammad. All of this is pointing that we need a savior to save the Nzima people. And out of Nzima people, Ghana will surely be liberated. And that's coming from Kabla.
Yeah, but try. We have to avoid tribalism too. I mean, Ghana is Ghana first, as you said.
That's it, yes.
Better life for all Ghanaians, yeah.
Good, yes. And I guess that's why your dad established the boarding system so that at least we can, get people from different walks of life to get the Anyway, finally, before I let you go, somebody said, Dr.REN, I have gotten the headline news. Mr. Sekou Nkrumah always give headline news. Yes, I've known him since the days of Abraham. Hey, he said, I've known him for many years, and I know he give the headlines. And the headlines tomorrow is going to be change MPP government. Sekou Nkrumah goes out to support John Dramani Mahama with a big bat. And also, Eddie Alba, so he's following the conversation. Your message finally through Ghanaians. I think that somebody also made mention about Dr. Indum's GN Bank, the collapse of Dr. Indum's GN Bank. I don't know if you have something to say. It says it's very sad that Kufuor and Ken Ofori-Atta collapsed Dr. Papakwesi Indum's bank. I don't know if you have anything to say, and that you marry it with your last words to all Ghanaians.
I mean, it's unfortunate that sometimes this political... in this case, I'm not too sure it's vindictiveness, but I mean, where maybe your interests, personal interests, kind of overshadow the national interests. I'm not too sure what really goes on there. But I mean, the finance minister, there have been calls for him to resign a while ago, and the president still stuck with him. I mean, I'm not too sure what sort of relationship it is, but sometimes you have to let go as a leader. I mean, even in Nkrumah then, I remember, but he brought them back actually. The Dawn broadcast, I don't know if people are old enough to remember. He got rid of some of his ministers, but then they found their way back, Kojo Botsu and so on. So unfortunately, sometimes in politics, you can't get rid of people you are so close to who have contributed to your success and worked with you for a long time. But it's interesting, in the case of Indom, I remember he was really hated by the NDC, some section in the NDC. And then you remember when he worked under Kufuor as minister for almost 8 years and so on.
Yeah.
So I'm not too sure how the tables have been turned on him by the MPP. It's not clear to me. But as I said, I've also been away for a while. I mean, I come on holidays, so I might be out of touch with some of these things that go on behind closed doors.
Someone says I should ask you, said this is coming from Mamiesi MPP. I said Mamiesi MPP said, Doctor, ask Mr. Sekou his take on the facelift of Kwame Nkrumah Mausoleum by the MPP government. I think he was in Ghana with his sister, and I think that definitely he must appreciate what Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo has done for the name Nkrumah and Kwame Nkrumah, better than what the NDC did for his own father. After all, Rawlings came and collapsed many of his father's companies that he, left behind for Ghana.
You mean Ghana's companies, not his?
Yes.
Nkrumah did not own; they were for Ghana.
Yes,
but
Ghana's companies, not yes.
But also, I mean, PNDC. If you give credit to what Akufo-Addo has done with the museum, then you have to give credit to what Rawlings did, because they established it in '92. It was set up by the PNDC government, right?
Yeah.
The mausoleum, yeah. So both did well in that sense. But we have a problem with culture of maintenance in Ghana. So we put nice things up, and then after a while they run down. We don't have enough money to maintain it. And that ties it to what I was saying with some government agencies that need to be shut down because they don't seem to be doing the job of delivering. So if it's not everything you can privatize. There are things of national interest that you cannot do so, but we need to find a way of maintaining things. We don't, and it's really not good enough. So I remember I had this bet with my sister that the renovation was done last year. I told her that after a couple of years, the place will be run down again.
Wow.
Yeah, because we don't have a culture of maintenance in Ghana. We don't maintain things properly.
That is so true. I mean, when you go to Takoradi, the Sipon Stadium is now, in tatters. I mean,
yes,
absolutely.
And the money that was spent on it, yeah. But even the Accra Sports Stadium, after that 2008 this was horrible. When you go to the toilets and so on, it's mess.
I think we need to inculcate the maintenance culture in our textbooks from the nursery to throughout our education, so that people know the importance.
We have a lot of problems that we need to address. And that's why I'm saying the leadership sometimes has to come down to the ground, the level of and be realistic in the approach and dealing with matters, not sit up somewhere and not really going around to see how things are going on the ground. I think we have to also, and that's why the Rawlings leadership was attractive at some point because of that approach. I think we need to do the same approach, but in terms of communicating with the ordinary folks and seeing the situation on the ground, what it is, not being told. Because you'll be horrified at some of these. Yeah, it's unacceptable what goes on in our society.
Finally, your message to Ghanaians listening to you here in the United Kingdom, Wales, all the 4 countries in UK and also in Europe and across the globe. Your message to Ghanaians.
Yeah, Ghanaians, inside or outside, or all Ghanaians?
All Ghanaians.
Oh, all Ghanaians. Yeah, I think we can contribute, those inside and those outside. I think we've had challenges, but we still have our Ghana. We're still largely peaceful. And so we have some strong points that has kept us alive, but there's a lot that we need to address when it comes to a better life, quality of life. And it can be done. We have to be realistic. You can't have it done overnight. It will take a while, but I think we need to find out what is really important for us. What are the main things? Like even an individual, if you want to change your life, then you have to draw a table or so, and then find out what you need to change first, and so on. So you start addressing the A before you address B, and so on. I think if we have that approach too, we can do. So it's what we as a nation, we think that, so we need to have forums, open forums where the people talk to. I think they do that in the US during elections. I think we need to have, but again, it has to be approached not from artificially, but realistically and properly. So these leaders can go down to areas and have an interaction with the people where they tell them their concerns, so that collectively we can understand that, oh, this is our need in this area, this is nationally, that is what is most important for us, and so on. So that at least that can serve as a guide to our leaders. So I think we need that approach. And then we hold our leaders accountable. I mean, I mentioned the issue of corruption has to be addressed. I think that's the main concern now. Corruption, we can't just let it slide. So we need to punish those who are being corrupt, no matter who you are and what you are, and where you belong and all that. So we need to do that. We need to do that, and do it genuinely, not for political. And nobody should think it is witch hunt. No, that's the way to go. So for me, corruption should be the first thing that has to be addressed. It's just not sitting right for Ghana and Ghanaians.
Wow. Thank you so much for honoring our invitation, and I know that a lot of people are saying, Kablan saying that you should be engaging us often so that the youth can also learn from you. We're most grateful, sir, for your time.
Thank you.
Abusua yene eye owura Sekou Nkrumah yene ne twin Nkrumah no nam say dodo no a etie wo questions bi na opese obi o contribute here. Ma me be phone lines no na won far with the bra na won so kan wadwene na kan wasem wo eye no kre kwan so ene hwehwehwam so ubetimi afre wo 0208 133 4646 0208 133 1134 and I say with me after WhatsApp number 07771950989. Also bo modi afre na so eja o contribution a wo no also my enti wonka. Bunim say 4th of July United Kingdom ye kwakoto aba why na abeto amano. The polls are saying say abato na ye kwakoto no owura eye Keir Starmer and are likely to be our Prime Minister. I don't know. They also aja maybe I was so beto abano ako. Labour na beto amana na Keir Starmer Labour Party ana ora Rishi Sunak ono no de no Conservative. Na Lib Dem for so Reform Party wa monim reform so de papa no ze no hadwene ne ho ahomete sana menka no de Nigel Farage ono ne party no Reform was one de senior TBA no wo mo de wo mo UK esiwo na wo matenetene anuama amanfo bebre no asusu say Reform Party de wo ba obetimi abo ama the United Kingdom, the ideas and the dreams of UK no etimi epushi forward. Me no ka say so Dr. Mahamadou Bawumia is on a 3-day tour in Ashanti region. Hey, Edompa womo pie abontene and womo support no. Some people are with the opinions that send tie bia no oja amanfo na eka ho amanfo na ese wo se wodi odwan na wo de ne ba santima mu wodi efra no hontoma kalesi bi yebeto ama no mentimi nka kala kro wo guess is as good as mine entiene wakopiem ewo ho asemi so asio asembe ya Amemfi East womo parliamentary candidate wabomodenia eja edi assembly atudwa na asɛm na ɔde ato dwa no sɛbio mɛbɔ mmɔden na mabɔ ama wate asɛm a wɔde ato dwa na asɛm no nyinaa ne sɛ ɛnɛ yi deɛ wɔse woba ɛyɛ Ghana deɛ a woyɛ galamsey ni a Akufo-Addo ɔbɔ ho ban paa nti sɛ police ni ɛha adwene de kyerɛ wo a wobɛtumi a bono a enkosi aga enkosi hwee saa asɛm yi ana ɛyɛ Amenfi East wɔn parliamentary candidate wɔde atoya mɛhwɛ na agya wo nso wetie asɛm a ɛyɛ this particular ɛyɛ PC ɛyɛ parliamentary candidate ɛde toya wɔka saa asɛm yi na owura a wɔyɛ Western Regional Minister no wɔte hɔ bi papapapa wɔtie deɛ ɛkɔ so nyinaa ɔno koraa deɛ no wɔsere a wɔbɔ ne nsɛm ɛde support deɛ ɛyɛ parliamentary candidate no ɛka na ɔno nso ɛde a na agya wɔfoa so no ɛnɛ yi bibusa wo ɛyɛ MPP foɔ mo pɛ so ɔmo kyerɛ sɛ police ni soja deɛ ɔmo mfa ɔmo nya hwe yɛntie deɛ ɛyɛ PC no ɛka yɛ
official ọmọnì akwẹnyà sọ mbẹyẹ sẹ ẹdùnmọ ní bi nti obi bá wọn sáyé táwọn akwẹnyà sẹ wọn kọhyẹn yìí tí àwọn bá wọn sọsọ ọba patrol a ẹyẹ patrol náà soldiers ní security services yẹn wọn mú wa ẹ máa rọ business ọtí nti sẹ wọn á fún àkúmọ náà wọ 5 million 3 million 10 million náà wọn lè gbẹjà lọ náà sẹ wọn fa ń tó fún wọn dà wọn á nà ọdẹ máa sáà ni yẹn kásẹ̀ ń tiẹ̀ dà. Because the police for these soldiers told me that them at the office, I try cases. More and more man, you know, who you have left in the room. And in Zimbabwe, or be back patrol, as I said, when in the year high. So while who money, the wild person of the man, on board in my mobile. But so people said, or you soldier indicating too much, but too control, my own game. And track and years or more with Mongo of Amabao. Oh, yes. 2024. So, my patrol or Baba patrol, and the Akase, authority on the edge you must have mature. Ya Jeffrey said, you don't know where you get a moment to one, or also young again, do the thing. I said, but then when you know, I said, we know where you're gonna fall. And bravo, we are more by so yet to make it. Or no, I want to move on to a bomb. The moon is high as a serious picture. More than 2-3 months as a serious bed in the car. Meaning, sight, only police for Kenya. A police for 2 weeks will be out. But the open be out, or I'll be out about a week or about 3, 4, 5. When you have my police, or when you want me, I might your mocha. When you have my Sujani, or when you want me, I might your mocha. And if you also got an idea, I want to go to soon. A perform action now. They to go, there will be better to police. Let me, who want to go? Who want to see and the answer, picture me a Lutina, on what you list, and I'm watching with Dina or number. Nina, what training number on the critique platform. Platform and medals, the MC medals, the regional minister, and the labor tissue. Now, yeah, say, what they say. So, what site baby do, we bow now in the air here. Put your baby and let you eat dinner. Now, voice message, actual platform, as you say. Mrs. Vicenzo, Asomji, soldiers will be Abaha. Almost say, almost vaccine. Then you say a march on the fair march now for him to see. Sometimes, some 90 year and better friends, he said, on Professor Akis.
Enti abusua wei asɛm a ɛyɛ NS Frimpong Amenfi East ɛyɛ MPP parliamentary candidate ɔde tuja yɛnkwa ahoma so. Hello, good afternoon, welcome to Rainbow Radio.
Good afternoon, Dr.REN. My name is Kitty Olsen. How are you, sir?
I'm blessed, Mr. Kit. Uncle Irriteu.
Well, thank you very much. It was nice to see Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's own son and at your studio, and I say hello to him. You had some fruitful discussions, and that's what I want to contribute towards.
Okay.
Dr. Sekou Nkrumah was talking about the politics of Ghana and all that. And that he said Kwame Nkrumah is dead, and therefore is no longer available around. But we know that the spirit, Nkrumah's spirit, is still prevailing. It's still all over the place. And we, who call ourselves Nkrumaists, are championing the cause of his father. I wanted Dr. Sekou Nkrumah to understand and appreciate this point or this stand. I'm glad he mentioned Dr. Indom as well. Indom and myself are all in the same group. Even though we left the CPP, but it's not too late to get it revived. We are going to continue the work Kwame Nkrumah did, because NPP has failed us for almost 8 years. We know what they have done. NDC has been hanging around. We don't really know what they are in there for. We have not seen any remarkable contribution to Ghana, the Republic of Ghana, by both NDC and NPP. But the CPP or the Nkrumahs, we are all ganging up to get back together again. For me, in the Progressive People's Party, our predicament is the fact that our leader has been suppressed by the new Patriotic Party. But the Ghanaians, the hypocrite Ghanaians, are very quiet. Ubi are you come MPP destroy Indom. The Indom story no. Akwa say Kwame Nkrumah story. Kwame Nkrumah story. Akwa say Jesus Christ story. You try to suppress him, but the man is not gone yet. He's still coming up. You know, the man who serves the people of Ghana, provided employment for over 10,000 Ghanaians, you want to suppress him. Kwesindom is our version of Dangote. Dangote is in Nigeria. Nobody can touch him. But why touch Kwesindom? Dr.REN, this is my contribution. Ghana for one war against power Ghana one. They should deliberate on this question I've put down there. Dangote, who can touch Dangote? And why, if we cannot touch Dangote in Nigeria, why do you touch Dr. Papa Kwesindom? Not only him, but there are other eminent Ghanaians in Accra who have been suppressed as well. But my man is Kwesindom. That's why I'm mentioning his name. But there are other people, other Ghanaians, eminent Ghanaians are they are suppressed. Ghana will be doing business called the rest of Africa. It shouldn't be like that, Dr. REN. To me, we are Samka.
Jo, you better say, what's bet me afraid na a Jones wa contribute, say, me a come be sima be me and sebi na mama me muso. It was so afraid na onso dia workano, now also fatu area. Ora kitios in the PPP for UK and Ireland ono and a yewomo a chairman. On also dia or they buy. The numbers to call is 0208 133 4646 and 0208 133 1134. Unsu betimi awosape yin na unsu afre I was 02077 71 950989. Ti bomodia na also afre na chere wadwene. Na onim se bebetina hanso so dia abreni na me ka chere wo se adwumegu a time ase wo mo boa me a eja me de ensempa no nyina ebre wo kama aluguin to green ahaban tea de authentic and pure herbal tea with numerous health benefits. And health benefits ni be and say it helps to produce a healthy skin. Sansuna, it helps to grow your hair, support cancer treatment, also good for the treatment of back pains and other rheumatic ailments. And I think so it helps to treat gout. Sanso and a boa a treaty ulcer, hypertension and sleeplessness. Sansuna a fight infections, treatment of diabetes, and I think so a boost immunity. And into Bomadian. Na frɛ wɔn wɔ 07796236426 07796236426 7826. And answer with me from 075 5252 7877. 075 5252 7877. Bomodiana frɛ wo mo direct and also betimi afrɛ wo so e wo WhatsApp so ni nyina omodiana eja omafa no ma attend to you quickly and faster. I'm going to be ahaban tea more than just a tea. Ti bomodiana na frɛ wo mo. Yes, aha. Yentie yenko. Anyway.
Rainbow Radio, live 92.4 FM and DAB+.
Mamenda mo amo frɛ ya se mo amo hwɛ yɛn so Facebook mo amo drive ya mo tie yɛn. Nienda ye ora Sekou Nkrumah sinso sɛ ɛnɛ nso bɛka yɛn sa wo Rainbow Radio UK so. Bigidi sɛ nyame ya adoma da sɛ nso ye behia. Monday to Wednesday be from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. with the drive talk ebrel. Maminchia His Excellency Papa Usankma Thursday Yeshia the BGT the second runner up Yedi Womo Ekwapuchia Papa Usu Ankuma. The girls raised the flag of Ghana high, and I think that we need to support them. I mean, Yemiangaza, my sister. She's a queen mother. And I think it was answered Juma Wagana High Commission in that. My sister Baba, the queen mother of Lower Discov in the Western region. Says God, yeah. Sanso and Aminchia Yard of Wajamishia Munina Wagana High Commission. Keep doing the good job for Mother Ghana. We can agree, disagree sometimes, but hey, we need to speak the truth. We need to also ensure say bit me your money, you know, mine is about a crab. One thing I like about His Excellency Papa Uswan Kuman is he is a fantastic gentleman. Anyway, this is where I draw the curtains down. Nyami aduma ibeshia Krobian Zamako to Kodishi anime. Dr. Kwame Nkrumah na anime. Enemy amene wa Sekou Nkrumah na twetwe nkomo. Insu be your boden. Ghana first is what we preach. Wo my Ghana ne be ye. We were not born of any inferior god in Tijitum so my ne be ye. Ni nyina start aye adwene no. Psych your mind and believe that Ghana be ye. Believe Sir Kwame Nkrumah said the black man is capable of managing his own affairs. And he says that Africa is not poor. And indeed, Ghana is also not poor. But then the Ghanaians, and I'm adwene I couldn't intine I poor. But I came to tell you that, life is also a problem-solving world. So if you solve a problem, automatically you are creating wealth. So if we don't solve our problem, just understand, say we are not creating any wealth. And the Krobia women say one more they have created wealth. And I know say how many billionaires and we are seeing one more do. Be assured so because the United States of America and so in the USA. If we are seeing billionaires are who do pa a Kroba kuno motai was war. China. Onipa a year over 800 billionaires are Chinese for. Number 2 because the United Kingdom meboa. I do any sir. UK can hold the answer yet the fourth. They are also second United States of America. Number 3 the Ghana na Abekana. Ghana na billionaires ben no do any war. ɛyɛ cowboy fo yi ɔmhyehyɛ kyɛ ɔmkɔ yie yasi mi amena mfufu yi ɛyɛ ɔsɛ kɔ ame despite mu ɛnyɛ wɔ moa wɔn din nim Ghana din ka ho pe kura wɔn billionaires dodoɔ paa wuyi China wɔn over 800 and I think 882 or so billionaires are Chinese citizens. America were 800. Now about third a friend is India for. United Kingdom at also a 9. Africa yen count. And so good in the diamond box site honey free bar. I am the Bejanya Miaduma China Beshia. Take good care of yourself and I love you.
Oh my God, I love Rainbow Radio. Many colors, many voices, one God, one station.
Bamadia na friend number ya me de ma wisisi a. Ensase da ye pa obetie bi. Ya mamre no tianka no.